Alrighty, y'all. So we got some really interesting news here. De'Aaron Fox trade talks expected to be held by the Kings before the deadline. So this was not something I was expecting to see today, in all honesty. And I'm not going to lie, I've sat here for the past 15-20 minutes. I just finished editing up and getting ready tomorrow's video that you guys are going to see, and I'm like, what do I do about this? Because I have a bunch of questions just by seeing this, right? And by the way, what does this mean even? It basically means De'Aaron Fox isn't necessarily going to get traded, right? What this means is the Kings are saying, hey, we have been having discussions and we're open to continuing to have these conversations, and if we find a De'Aaron Fox trade, we're not afraid to pull that trigger right now. And this is really interesting to me, right? So here's what I'm thinking. What are the Kings doing? They're being erratic in my mind. Let's recap the last little bit of time for the Kings, right? We have the light the beam season and everything, and then there's kind of a bit of a drop off, right? They go and get DeMar DeRozan, and you're like, okay, this team is trying to buy back in on this group, right? Of this Fox, Sabonis, Malik Monk, and guys like that, and they want to buy into this group. That makes a ton of sense to me. I think it's a pretty good basketball team. They go and get DeRozan. They didn't have to give up much to get him. Made a ton of sense. They bring DeRozan onto the team. It hasn't been a great start to the season. They're underperforming in certain aspects. There's some rotational questions, and then they go and fire Mike Brown, who wasn't far removed from a Coach of the Year candidate and getting an extension and all these other things. And you're just kind of like, okay, that might have been an overreaction. I guess we'll see. But then they start to win some more basketball games with Doug Christie taking over, right? And so you're like, okay, this team's trying to get back to winning. They're trying to get back to winning, right? Firing a coach in the middle of the season after you are kind of underperforming, that indicates you're trying to win. And now De'Aaron Fox might be on the move. So what's going on here? Because you don't have much of a basketball team here without De'Aaron Fox, right? So what am I supposed to believe about this team? What is this team doing? If any of you guys have ever played 2K before, are you a rebuilding team? Are you a selling team? Are you a contending team? What is this group trying to do? It feels like they're just kind of flip-flopping between things, and I don't really know how to interpret this, in all honesty. And so, look, here could be the conversation, right? And purely speculation, right? There could just be something where they've sat down with Fox and they're like, hey, are you going to be wanting an extension with us? And he's not giving them any indication that he's going to. And so maybe they're like, okay, well, we got to move him now rather than later, because if we look at De'Aaron Fox's contract, he's making about $35 million this year. And then next year's the last year of his deal. He's making about $37 million. And maybe they're like, hey, we're gonna get a lot more for Fox right now if we try to trade him right stinking now, right? And because here's the other thing, right? It's believed that Fox has a target destination in mind ahead of the 2026 free agency. And look, it's no spoiler. The rumored team is the San Antonio Spurs. Basically, there's been a lot of talk saying that Fox thinks that if you pair him with Wemby, they're going to run the NBA, right? Which, I mean, you guys can agree or disagree about that in the comments down below. I think Fox is a very, very good player. A very, very good player. I wouldn't say he's one of the upper echelon players or something like that. And it's clear that they're going to need a long-term point guard on this team once Chris Paul's gone. Chris Paul's been very effective for them this year, but look, he's just not going to play for forever. That's just kind of how it is. And so what are we doing? I don't quite understand. So then the idea goes, do the Spurs go and trade for De'Aaron Fox right now? If so, who do the Kings want back? Do they want winning players? Do they want draft picks? So are the Kings blowing things up then if they want draft picks? Does that mean Sabonis is available? Does that mean that Malik Monk is available, right? Other guys like that? I don't understand what this team would be doing then, because it seems like they're trying to win. They just gave DeMar DeRozan this deal, right? So is DeMar DeRozan suddenly available? I don't really know what to think of this. It feels like such a short-lived existence then for this team. But again, if you don't think you can keep Fox, I mean, yeah, then it's your job to try to keep him. Just looking at Fox's numbers from this last year, I mean, 25 points per game, that's incredible. 6.2 assists, that's a great number. 3 turnovers, that's fine for a point guard. It's not the greatest ratio in the world, but it's fine. 5 rebounds, that's awesome for your point guard. 1.5 steals, very, very cool. Kind of an empty defensive player in my mind right now. Field goal percentage could be better given the shots that he's taking. The 3-point percentage is not looking great this year. It was at least getting to more respectable as of last year, and it's kind of falling off this season. At least the free throw percentage is looking better, which is great. And if you go look at some EPM numbers, I'm trying to bring up EPM numbers a little bit more so you guys can see some higher level analytics on this channel. He comes into the 88th percentile on offense, which is good. 100th percentile would be the best. That's where you find Jokic right here. And then he's a 44th percentile percentile here on defense, and these are individualized stats at the end of the day. So he's a bit below average defensively, but still pretty close to average overall. You look at some other interesting things like assist percentage here. He comes into like the 87th percentile, turnover percentage like 54th. So that's why I say kind of average at the end of the day. And he is getting a lot of assists. I would counter and say that De'Aaron Fox is the beneficiary of a pretty good system where he's allowed to get assists. I don't personally see him as someone that's constantly setting up his teammates and stuff, but that's kind of just my deeper perception after looking at quite a few hours of film in my day and stuff. That's just, again, a perception of mine. And again, I think defensively he's fallen off a little bit. I think the jumper's a little bit of a concern, but overall, this is a really good basketball player, really, really good. I can't undersell that, or I can't even oversell that enough. He's always going to be like a fringe all-star player. I think I named him to my all-star team this year in my video. So this is a really good player. This is a very good basketball player. I think he's got some flaws and stuff like that, but if you're the Spurs, why trade for him now if you think you can just get him in like a year from now and you can just continue to collect like good draft picks and stuff like that? Because it's not like you're going to be an instant contender if you add De'Aaron Fox to this team, right? I mean, we can take a look at the standings. Right now, the Kings are here. The Spurs are here. Do you think if you add De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, you're better than the Mavericks? No. The Suns, depending on what the Suns do. The Timberwolves, probably iffy. Clippers, probably not. Lakers, Nuggets, like you're not better than any of these teams, so I don't get what the rush is, right? And then again, the question is, and this is where I look to you guys, what are we doing with the Kings then if they get rid of Fox? Because I mean, that's the guy. Sabonis is having an incredible season, but like this is kind of the main guy that makes a lot of things go for this team. So if you don't have him anymore, what are we doing? And so I sat here, right, and I'm like, do I do a video on this? I've got a video coming out tomorrow, and I'll explain that. But I'm like, hey, do I do one of these videos where it's like, hey, kind of like the Bucks video we did earlier this week, where it's like, hey, let's run through a simulation of what the Sacramento Kings could do, but what is this team doing? Am I completely tearing this team down to just the scraps of atoms, or are we retooling? Are we getting in on the Jimmy Butler trade somehow? I don't know, because the $37 million, that's pretty close to like the Chris Middleton numbers, the Brandon Ingram numbers, stuff like that. But like, where do these guys get moved after that? Because those aren't straightforward trades. I don't really know. And then I was like, okay, do I do one of, and I'm just going to scroll down a bit. Do I do one of these videos, the who should trade for De'Aaron Fox, where I basically go through every single team and I'm like, okay, could we trade him here? Does that make sense? Could we trade him here? Does that make sense? And spoiler alert, I've got a video coming out tomorrow about that for a different player. So be in tune for that. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know how to interpret this at the end of the day. So I'm very, very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Is this just the Kings being like, look, we're realizing we're in this situation right now. We're very, very close to the trade deadline, which is a little over a week away. And so the hardest thing is going to be to try to trade De'Aaron Fox right now. And we're running out of time to trade a guy like De'Aaron Fox. So do we just need to do this now because we've just come to this conclusion that we have to trade him? I don't know. It seems erratic. Like at the end of the day, you should have some questions about the Kings for just having to think about this, right? Because it's like, okay, how did you not plan this out sooner and stuff like that? And maybe you say the poor performance this year is making Fox look at himself in the mirror and being like, is this really where I want to be? This team hasn't really proven that it can put something together, so I don't know, right? I don't really know, but I'm very curious. What do you guys think I should do? What kind of video do you want to see me do for De'Aaron Fox? Because I would have no idea how to do the trades that can realistically save the Sacramento Kings. I have no idea what they're trying to do right now. I could probably do one of these, but again, it's like, it feels so short notice, and like, I don't know. I don't feel like there's a ton of easy trades to do with De'Aaron Fox, but I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts at the end of the day. I'm really, really curious. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening and everything. Let's see what happens, man. There's so many rumors at this trade deadline. I just get the feeling it's going to flop for whatever reason because these trades are too hard to make. But hey, appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.